It looks like the Nintendo Switch 2 and Mario Kart World won't be getting many reviews before launch, if any at all. The Switch 2 reportedly costs $338 to produce, meaning that in certain regions, Nintendo's actually selling the console at a loss. The Mario movie title has seemingly leaked. We have talk from Sandfall Interactive about a Switch 2 version of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, as well as from Remedy regarding their new multiplayer title, FBC Firebreak, that's set in like the Control universe. Very interesting. Cookie Clicker was announced for Switch 2, and of course, yesterday, Square Enix graced us with a video game cancellation, but also a bunch of screenshots for Kingdom Hearts 4. So that's what we're getting into today. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Nintendo Switch 2 coverage and news basically each and every day, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Let's get into it. Alrighty folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. I hope your Thursday is going well. A lot to get into today. Starting with this, which I think for a lot of people is the biggest news this morning regarding Nintendo Switch 2. Christopher Drang over at the Game Business, his new publication slash podcast, had a report this morning during the podcast, but also written up here. I'll have it linked down below, about how at least most major outlets won't even be receiving a Switch 2 until launch, which means before release, we probably will not be getting many reviews, if any at all, for the Nintendo Switch 2, for Mario Kart World, for the Zelda 4K remasters, Welcome Tour, whatever it is. We likely are not going to be looking at too many reviews for this console before release. Christopher Drang writes here, press warned, no Switch 2 consoles until launch. Games Press will not be receiving Nintendo Switch 2 consoles until just before it comes out, the Game Business has learned. Some media have been warned that they will not have their machine until launch day. Nintendo has told journalists that this is due to the requirements of a significant day one patch. Quote, it's really frustrating, said one editor. We will need to cover Switch 2 while also working across Summer Games Fest. How are we supposed to do that? Another added, quotes, anyone who can get a hold of the console early from a dodgy retailer will have a head start in terms of coverage. I know the console will be sold out at launch, but what about all the other games? So two things, right? Sounds like most outlets are not going to have a review of this console up before launch, maybe on launch day. Maybe they'll have to crunch and get those reviews ready, which is obviously never ideal. I would still expect coverage from IGN and maybe like a GameSpot and a couple other places. But far and wide, it sounds like most video game outlets will not be receiving early Nintendo Switch 2 consoles from Nintendo, which is definitely different from past. I remember the Nintendo Switch seeing like Kinda Funny and Easy Allies get their Switch units. I want to say it was at least a week before it came out, but it might have been 2 weeks because, you know, they had to play Breath of the Wild as well as the other launch games and get those reviews ready. This time, thanks to this day one patch, it looks like Nintendo is not sending them out too early, which having a big day one patch for a console isn't that big of a deal. I mean, I feel like that's pretty standard at this point. But if you were looking forward to an influx of Nintendo Switch 2 coverage leading up to launch right before it comes out, I would still expect a couple, but maybe not literally every video game outlet, every big YouTube kind of group, like a Kinda Funny, like an Easy Allies. So just be wary of that. And then there will be that significant day one patch, which I don't think we have exact details on what that will do exactly. I wouldn't be surprised if it's as crucial as like, well, this is how game chat's added to the UI, you know, something like that would definitely be enough, I think, for Nintendo to kind of pump the brakes and not send out units. Of course, this is a new console. There's going to be millions of these things across the world on day one. We will see people get it early. We will see retailers accidentally ship it out, and we will get videos and early hands-on impressions for sure in a preview environment like I played it at. So there will be coverage, just not maybe as much as we are used to when it comes to a new console launch, and especially not as much as we're used to when it comes to a big game launch like Mario Kart World. But also, let's be real, it's not like Nintendo really needs the coverage from IGN even. I feel like these types of websites really aren't that like important or crucial anymore in terms of marketing for something, or even for a good word of mouth. Maybe the Metacritic score, at least in my like bubbles, I feel like people don't care about a review, you know? They care about that Metacritic score, they care about the highlights, right? But are people really going to, I don't know, Polygon.com and clicking on a review? I don't know. I just feel like Nintendo doesn't need to have these reviews before launch. I don't think it's that imperative to whether or not the Switch 2 is a success or not. So I'm sure they were looking at it and they were just like, well, does it really matter? Next up, let's talk about how much it actually costs Nintendo to produce a Nintendo Switch 2, or at least manufacture it, as we had this article from the Financial Times a couple of weeks ago, although it seems to have gone under the radar, and according to them, the Switch 2 costs about $338 to manufacture. Reading from Go Nintendo here, they say a Financial Times article from a few weeks back had an interesting tidbit tucked all the way at the bottom, and it pertains to the cost Nintendo takes on in manufacturing a Switch 2. According to the article, Vietnam export data lists the Switch 2 unit price for custom duties at $338. As you might know, Switch 2 units being sold in the US are coming from Vietnam, which is where the price data comes from. You might think that the difference between $338 and $450 is quite considerable, pointing to Nintendo making a pretty penny off of the Switch 2 at launch. However, if the manufacturing price was the only factor in launching Switch 2, that would definitely be the case. There are obviously a host of other aspects that go into a system, such as packaging, marketing, labor, and much more. While it's still likely Nintendo is making a profit overall, the margins are likely much slimmer than the figures above suggest. Now, Go Nintendo doesn't go into this, but this heavily suggests that at least in Japan, where they have that cheaper region-locked version of the Switch 2, they are almost certainly selling that at a loss. Maybe not a massive loss, but some sort of loss is happening there when they sell those units. And then, yeah, in America and in Europe and stuff, it might be a slim profit, but not much. Not what Nintendo's used to. Nintendo in the past has been pretty, I don't want to say proud, but like they've talked like, yeah, we sell our consoles at a profit. That's something that Nintendo really tries to do with their hardware, which is different from an Xbox or a PlayStation, Xbox. They usually, at least at launch, will sell their hardware at a loss just to get people in the door buying games in their ecosystem. Nintendo hasn't quite operated like that every time in the past. So this all comes down to just the rise of everything, right? The cost of everything is going up. I don't think there was really any way for them to keep it how they have in the past, where they're making a big, $50 profit on every unit sold with the Switch 2, just because. I mean, they literally could have. They could have priced it at like, $500, $550, and that would have certainly helped. But at that point, you're probably losing more money from lost sales and people buying games. So obviously, there's a lot that goes into this. But yeah, apparently $338 to produce a Nintendo Switch 2. Given, like they say, packaging costs, I'm not even sure if that includes assembly as well. $450, I personally think $450 is a pretty good deal for the console. It was that moment that they showed the 120 hertz screen. That was the moment I was like, oh, $450 is not actually that bad. If we're getting like a 120 hertz display, I know people are losing their minds over the specs right now. There was a Digital Foundry thing, and people are saying it's weaker than expected. I don't know, man. I think for what we're getting, $450 is pretty fair, especially when you see the cost of the PS5 and Series X also raising. Now, if the Switch 2 goes up in price later this year, maybe that'll be a different discussion for sure, but I don't know, man. I think $450 for what we're getting is pretty good overall. Okay, this next news broke right after I posted my video on Wednesday. I didn't post a video yesterday, so I wanted to cover it just, for the record. We got to cover everything major here. Not a Switch 2 story, although it is a big Nintendo headline here. Super Mario World looks to be the official name of the next Mario movie. It has been removed from NBC Universal's page, but they had a page talking about their deal with Peacock and how all of these exciting movies are going to be going to the streaming service. And in that, they talk about Megan 2.0, Nobody 2, Bad Guys 2, the live action How to Train Your Dragon, and they actually listed Super Mario World as one of the titles. Now, this could be an error. They did remove it, as Nintendo Life states here with their new screenshot showing. I didn't realize as I was reading it, but they actually did remove it. So the thought process is like, this is probably real. However, they do just refer to Shrek and Minions as Shrek and Minions. They don't have the full title there. So is Super Mario World a placeholder? Maybe. However, this movie is coming out, I think, April 3rd, 2026. It's coming out next April. We're going to start hearing more about it very soon. This would make sense that NBC Universal would have a deal to get it on Peacock. The original movie was on Peacock initially. And Super Mario World as a title, that just makes a lot of sense. Because if you remember at the end of Mario Movie 1, the big tease was the Yoshi egg. Where did Yoshi get introduced? In Super Mario World, the SNES game. So, Super Mario World, just wanted to include that here. Big news if you are a fan of video game movies. I'm pretty excited for this one. I think we'll get more information on it. Probably in like September, I guess, is when we'll start really hearing about it. But we might get that title here officially in the coming weeks. And then, casting and stuff in a September Direct, perhaps, or a Mario Anniversary style presentation or something. So, pretty exciting there. Okay, let's go over our Nintendo Today updates from yesterday, but also today, since I didn't post yesterday. First up, we have this Mario Kart World clip showing how to customize your button inputs for the GL and GR buttons. So this will work on the Switch 2 Pro Controller, but also on the Switch 2 Joy-Con 2 charging grip if you decide to buy that. And what's great is it seems like the button mapping here is on a game-by-game basis. So if you want to have different buttons assigned to GL and GR, depending on if you're playing Mario Kart World or Breath of the Wild or Street Fighter, you can do that. And, you know, I think on the DualSense Edge, which I use a lot, I love the back buttons on that controller. There's like 4 profiles, I want to say, maybe a little bit more than that you can set. But this, it looks like for every game, you will be able to assign those, which is pretty cool. We also learned from this clip, from the title screen, that there will be a day 1 patch for Mario Kart World. The title screen says it is running version 1.1.0, which isn't super surprising. This is going to be an online game. It's going to get several updates throughout its life cycle, but wanted to include that. And then we also had this little clip here. I'm going to play it with sound so you can hear it. But in the like Joy-Con ordering screen, when you want to, you know, turn on Joy-Con, there's actually a little musical Easter egg here, which is funny because on the Switch 1, you can already kind of do this, but it looks like they're really leaning into it on the Switch 2. I'll play the clip now. So yeah, cool stuff. I'm liking Nintendo today. It's always small little tidbits like this, but if you're really excited for Switch 2, I highly recommend you download it because every morning, I think around 8 a.m., they post something, and that something has just gotten a little bit more interesting, I feel like, as we lead up to launch. Okay, next up, we have talk from a couple of developers regarding Switch 2 versions of their games, starting off with one of the biggest games of the year, one of the highest reviewed games of all time. We have Clair Obscur Expedition 33. The developers say a Switch 2 version could be, quote, interesting, which is such like a non-answer, but also the fact that they said that has me really thinking. I bet this is already in development. I bet this is already underway. If Nintendo is smart at all, like they expedited a Switch 2 dev kit to them if they didn't already have one. The CEO of Sandfall said, quotes, well, at this point, considering the success of the game, it kind of changes everything. So clearly it's too early to say, but we're kind of in a situation where, let's say there are a lot of opportunities showing up, way too many at once, and we're figuring out what we'll go for and what we won't. But yeah, it's definitely something that could be interesting. So Clair Obscur, one of the most popular games of the year, already a breakout hit, new IP. I think it's sold over 2 million copies now as this turn-based RPG with real-time elements. I played a little bit of it, very good. I need to play through more, but I think a Switch 2 version of this game is just a no-brainer and really only a matter of time. I mean, this game is probably going to win Game of the Year. Like, I really don't know what else is going to come out here that would really shift things up, to be honest, based on how people have been talking about this game and gushing over it. So yeah, Nintendo talking to them and reaching out saying, hey, we need to get this on Switch 2 would not surprise me. Probably not this year. I mean, unless they can get that port going like that, like just really, really fast. But I think sometime in early 2026, if those irons are already in the fire, we could see this come out. Maybe September Direct they announce it. Maybe February, March release for a Switch 2 version, which would be awesome. It's great to see such a massive success from this team. This is their first game, and more platforms would only be a good thing in terms of growing it even more. And I'm excited to see what their next game is also. And maybe that would be a Switch 2 thing as well. Similarly, we also had a Remedy, the developers of Control, as well as Alan Wake, talking about how they would love to bring FBC Firebreak to Switch 2, saying never say never. So this is from the Gamertag Radio podcast, where they said, quotes, I would love to do it. I think the Switch is awesome. I hope the Switch 2 is awesome as well. But right now we're very focused on putting it on the platforms. We've got too many platforms to get right. I would say never say never, you know. Really, our goal will remain to get it onto as many gamers' hands as possible. So let's see. So Remedy is a developer that kind of supported the Switch. They had that Alan Wake remaster, which wasn't very good on the platform. And then Control got a cloud version. Alan Wake 2 never had anything. So ideally, they focus on those. I think more people care about Alan Wake 1 getting a more proper remaster on Switch 2, but also Control and Alan Wake 2. But FBC Firebreak, this is their new take on a 3-player cooperative FPS, right? So we'll see. I mean, not to be too pessimistic, but we've seen so many live service games kind of falter. This game's coming out in June. I mean, I wonder what the pipeline looks like there for getting this game up on Switch 2. I hope it's a success for them. I hope they're able to find a niche player base that will keep this game alive, and maybe one day it will come to Switch 2. And also, I just feel like more multiplayer stuff early on in the Switch 2's life, like, that makes sense. If you hit it big early on, you can kind of be like the big, multiplayer Switch 2 game. I remember back in like 2017, late 2017, maybe early 2018, Paladins coming to Switch 1, and that was like a huge deal because there was nothing else. Overwatch wasn't on Switch 1 yet. Fortnite wasn't on Switch 1 yet. Paladins was like this weird Overwatch clone that a lot of people were like really excited about because there just wasn't much multiplayer FPS type games on the console. So if Remedy could get Firebreak on there pretty early, that would probably be their best bet in terms of like getting some sort of audience, I feel like, just because Switch 2 players likely won't have too much else going on in terms of first-person cooperative shooters. But yeah, Clair, Obscur, Firebreak might be coming to Switch 2. They're talking about it. That would be pretty cool. All right, next up we have the biggest announcement of all time. This is the craziest news I've ever covered in one of these videos. Cookie Clicker, the internet phenomenon from 2013, the browser game, is now coming to consoles. It's coming to Switch on May 22nd, but they also confirmed there will be a Switch 2 version of it, which makes so much sense. The Switch 2 has the Joy-Con mouse. You can click it like if you were playing on a regular PC. Just very random. You know, we haven't had too many Switch 2 confirmations where the Switch 2 logo is actually in the trailer since the Switch 2 was announced, but here we are with Cookie Clicker, and they're one of the few that are bold enough to put the Switch 2 logo in their trailer. So Cookie Clicker, you know what? I will probably download this. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes all you need is a mindless game that'll make a number go up and you unlock cute little things. You get a pet dragon. I don't even know. I've never played Cookie Clicker, but yeah, new Switch 2 game confirmed. Biggest announcement of the year, right? And then finally, I wanted to talk about Kingdom Hearts 4, as well as Kingdom Hearts Missing Link being canceled. Now, you might argue, Bo, this isn't Nintendo news. However, we have heard so much from Square Enix regarding their aggressive multi-platform plans. They've done a bunch of business restructuring. We know we're getting the entire Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy on the Switch 2. I think it is maybe a optimistic outlook, but I think it is very likely that we see Kingdom Hearts 4 come to the Nintendo Switch 2. So until Square Enix says otherwise, I'm going to treat it as if it is coming to Switch 2. I just don't see a reality where they're talking so much about multi-platform and how they don't want to have these exclusivity deals anymore and they want to get as many people playing their games as possible. If we're getting the third 7 remake game, which we know we are, they've said as much in their creator's voice and in interviews and stuff, if we're getting that, I think it's pretty safe to assume that Kingdom Hearts 4 will come to Switch 2. But ultimately, I just want to talk about Kingdom Hearts because I am a Kingdom Hearts fan. So first things first, they canceled Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. This was a mobile game. Pretty important because, you know, mobile games in the Kingdom Hearts universe, you know, those actually matter. They're going to have lore and stuff. So I'm curious what will happen there. But then as sort of a peace offering, I guess, yesterday they dropped a bunch of new screenshots for Kingdom Hearts 4, and it's looking pretty good. I gotta be honest. I am very excited for this. They say to our Kingdom Hearts community, we are currently working hard on Kingdom Hearts 4, and we'll continue pouring ourselves into the game's development. We're dedicated to making this an experience that lives up to your expectations. We've seen how excited you are, and we truly are grateful from the bottom of our hearts. We are equally excited and can't wait to share more about Kingdom Hearts 4 when the time is right. Until then, we appreciate your patience. Thank you for your continued support. And say, this is just a very brief glimpse at this game that was announced over 3 years ago now. That was when the first trailer came out, and frankly, these screenshots don't reveal too much new, right? We have, I think, a bit of a new UI here with Sora in this, you know, very realistic world fighting some Heartless. You have this girl here. You have a phone. Confirmed playable Mickey. That's exciting. That was in the Remind DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3. So you'll be playing as Mickey in some parts of this game. Just nice to see it. And I mean, I wonder what the pipeline is for this game. Like, if they're just dropping screenshots now as like a peace offering for canceling Missing Link, like, dude, are we still like years away from seeing another trailer, right? I kind of thought that even if it's not coming out this year, obviously it's not coming out this year, and I don't think it's coming out next year either, but even if it's not, Square Enix, they like their trailers. I kind of thought we would get a trailer maybe later this year, like TGS or something at the Game Awards, but if they're just, you know, haphazardly dropping screenshots right now, I think that means that a trailer's further off than I thought, which means the actual release of this game might be further off than I thought. But yeah, very exciting stuff. I mean, it's nice just to have a crumb. Kingdom Hearts fans feasting right now with the thin slice of bread. And like I said, I do think that Kingdom Hearts 4 will come to Switch 2. Once again, just based on how they've been acting, they're bringing the 7 Remake trilogy to Switch 2. The ultimate hope, is that they go back and actually do native versions of all of the other Kingdom Hearts games. If you remember, they did the cloud versions when they added Sword of Smash. Sakurai was like, also, guess what? I'm here to announce that we're doing cloud versions of Kingdom Hearts on Nintendo Switch. That was such a major disappointment. I would love to replay these games on a Nintendo platform because most of them have never been on a Nintendo platform, just the spin-offs, right? So if we could get native versions, before Kingdom Hearts 4. I think that would make a lot of sense. And actually, I think that will end up happening, especially if this is still so many years away. Square Enix, you know, doing their restructuring, focusing on their bigger IP, clearly has left a gap in their schedule where, I mean, right now, they don't have anything dated except for Bravely Default. You know, there's not much going on. Final Fantasy XIV Mobile is a thing that's happening apparently, but we just got a major expansion for the proper version. 16 just came out a year or two ago, so gonna be a while before we see 17. Remake Part 3 is still a while away. Dragon Quest 12, Yuji Horii just said the other day, like, yeah, it's still in development. It's like, oh, great, thanks. So I don't know what's going on here. I guess they're just not going to have much this year, right? We're looking at Bravely Default, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD, and Final Fantasy VII Remake on Switch, maybe, because that's not even actually confirmed for 2025. It is definitely an off year for Square Enix, but maybe next year we see Final Fantasy IX Remake, we see maybe a bit more of Kingdom Hearts 4 as well as Dragon Quest 12. I'm not sure. It's going to be a slow couple of years for them, I think, until they really ramp up with their new restructuring, their focus on quality over quantity. So Kingdom Hearts 4, very excited, but it might be a while before we see it. And once again, I do think we will see it on Switch 2, but let me know what you think. Do you think Kingdom Hearts 4 will make its way to Switch 2, or do you think Square Enix is going to be weird and not release it there? I just don't really see that happening. So that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on everything we talked about. Seems like there won't be any Switch 2 reviews. The Switch 2 might cost about $340 US to manufacture, which is pretty interesting. You know, Nintendo might actually be selling this console at a loss or near a loss. Would you like to see Clair, Obscur, or FBC Firebreak come to Switch 2? Are you excited for Cookie Clicker? I know at least one person will be excited for Cookie Clicker in the comments. Let me know if that's you down there. And then, yeah, Kingdom Hearts. I really hope we see all of them come over natively to Switch 2. I would eat that up. It's been so long since I played these games. I'm due for a replay of the series that I love so much. So let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch 2 news videos. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my other channel at It's Amiibo, where I cover Nintendo collecting. And you can click on one of these two videos to listen to me ramble about even more Nintendo stuff. Until next time, folks. Peace.